So my name's RJ, and I'm a second generation fish farmer from here in Ontario. My sister and I have several land-based farms, about 2 hours north of the GTA, and we raise rainbow trout, coho salmon, and Arctic char. We also have a pilot scale net pen farm site up on Manitoulin and a small processing plant just down by our farms here. So we raise a lot of juvenile rainbow trout that feed the rest of the Ontario trout sector in terms of them growing them out. And then we also do our own processing, and we deliver fish to about 1,500 homes a month through our direct to home business. The biggest challenge would be climate change. We're just seeing a lot more warmer waters, a lot more erratic weather. And fish farmers are no different than other farmers in terms of working sort of with the earth and with the weather to raise our fish. So that the climate change is just that the changes that are coming are a little bit faster than the fish can adapt to. So we're seeing immune system stressed, and it just opens the door for new pathogens and new problems. And unfortunately, it's just happening a little bit faster than we see research being able to keep up with, but also just regulation change keeping up with. The other changes really actually sort of are linked and stem to it, but we're seeing some emerging pathogens. We're looking for ways to boost the immune systems of fish, we're looking for feed additives, vaccinations, and things like that. And then it's not necessarily a challenge, but we're always trying to be more sustainable. So looking at more sustainable feed options, more sustainable sort of water treatment and water quality, and everything that ties into that. Every innovation, I think, across all of our farms comes from a problem. Whenever we're faced with any sort of challenge on the farm, that really gets all of our gears turning and our teams all working together to find solutions. It could be something as simple as, the pipes freezing between troughs. How do we avoid that? Or how do we get a cage to suspend a few feet below surface so that ice can go by? It's often born out of some challenge that needs fixing, and usually right away. I think there's innovations happening sort of all throughout the farm. When we look at how we've increased the fish health and welfare, most recently, it's an additive that we add to the water. Humic. It's a combination of humic and fulvic carbon that we're working with University of Guelph and a private business on. We add that, and it actually brings down the fungus load on eggs. It helps improve the microbiomes of the fish themselves and the microbiomes of the water. So that's probably the latest thing that's helped with fish health. But some of the things that have transformed the business the most have actually been some of the market dynamics that have changed with COVID. They've opened up an opportunity to reach the consumer directly and hear back from the consumer directly. And it's sort of shifted. So that one would be more of a sales innovation that's really changed how we do business here. And that's really been felt throughout the entire sector, actually, that push for local. Yeah, another innovation is a really good example of how everything is connected, and by nature, farming is interdisciplinary. We had a lot of engineering might that went into designing offshore net pens. So most of the other net pens in Ontario are connected to shore, but there's lots of problems there for stagnant water, warm water, which bring in disease issues. So at our site at Shashagowaning First Nation, we have offshore cages that are 1,000 feet offshore, suspended. They're big 94-foot across hexagonal cages. But we had a lot of engineering might that went into designing these so that they could submerge either just below surface or straight to the bottom. And to us, and to most of the people at the time, it was simply an engineering problem. But as soon as we actually started submerging them and putting the fish down to the bottom of the lake, we very quickly learned that we didn't actually, on the engineering team that built it, have the right amount of fish health expertise, because those fish actually went down too far too quickly, and the PSI pressure on them and then coming back up would rupture their swim bladders. And within 2 weeks of them being submerged like that, they start to actually get a spinal deformity, and they start swimming like this. And although we're land-based farmers, that was totally new to us. But at the time, nobody really understood what these fish health implications are. And so ridiculously, we think this is a problem that is so common, But the ridiculous thing is, we reach out to the Ontario Aquaculture Research Centre to help us find some research. And there's like 2 papers that study fish under pressure and quick pressure changes, like in the entire database. And so all of a sudden our engineering problem becomes a fish health problem. So that's the latest problem we have to solve. I think the Ontario fish farming sector writ large needs more research on helping our fish adapt to the stresses of climate change. So whether or not that's genetics research, looking at thermal tolerance and sort of ability to fight diseases, or it's tackling certain emerging pathogens that we're seeing in vaccinations directly, or it's looking at feed ingredients. But really, it's about how we're going to sort of set up our fish to succeed in the future. And then the other side of it is there's a big technological and engineering component to fish farming as we continue to recirculate water and bring more fish farms indoors. I would say that there's a fair amount of research and technology there. It's more about how we put it into practice and how we make it make economic sense. And so that's a little bit further down the line for those. So my father, who's been in the aquaculture sector for almost 55 years, when he was starting out the Ontario fish farming sector, him and a lot of his, what we call old boys at the time, a lot of the researchers and the government regulators and sort of bureaucrats were neck and neck on the farms, helping build this industry from scratch. And at that time, it was so streamlined between the researchers at universities like the University of Guelph, and then some of the bureaucrats and aquaculture specialists at OMAFRA and the farmers. But now I really struggle because there really isn't a lot of reward for early career researchers to actually get out there onto the farms and talk with the farmers, spend time working on the farm to understand, really what some of our challenges are. So my number one advice to any early career researcher is just reach out to a farmer. We're always very excited to open our gates and welcome people to the farm and talk about what we're doing. And I think it's really going to add a sort of usefulness and value to your understanding of what the sector needs, and therefore make the research and the focus of the research just that much more relevant. And then it also means that when you're working on different research projects, you have this sort of direct tie into how it's going to make a real significant impact, like not just to you as a researcher, but also the farmer and just the food supply chain in general, which is really why we're all in this, right? I think that there are 2 big barriers, and that has to do with timing and it has to do with risk. So on the timing front, I think being a farmer really means that sometimes you're just trying to make it through the season. You have 6 things coming at you at any given time, and you're just, sprinting towards that time when harvest season is done or all the fingerlings have been sent up north. There's only sort of key periods in the year that you really have the opportunity to think long-term and look at long-term, because usually you're just putting out fires right in front of you. So sometimes aligning that timing with, the very rigid like grant timing or academic year doesn't necessarily work. The other aspect is on risk. So although sometimes some very early bits of research or early studies may show that something could make a drastic change, the reality is, as a farmer, I'm putting the lifeline of, a batch of 100 or 200 or 500,000 fish on the line to try out something new. And I can't always necessarily take that risk. And there's lots of opportunity. There's lots of times when you hear about something working over here and then you try it and it doesn't work. So sometimes when researchers come to us like swearing that something's going to work and we should adapt it, I'm all game for that, but it's very difficult for me. The risk level and having to take on the risk for that to succeed or not has a real impact on our bottom line and our harvest goals and all of that stuff. Yeah, I think my advice for early career researchers would just be to get out to the farms. We have an annual conference every year. We usually have some other sort of workshops and social events through our association. So reach out to the association, and that's kind of your one-stop shop for what's going on. But also, our sector in general is quite small and we all know each other. And if you reach out to one of us, we'll often just like introduce you to other people as well. So just start with 1 or 2 interactions, and chances are you'll be amazed, because we really do welcome people to the farm, and we love giving tours and talking through our challenges. And if you catch us at the right time of year, we could very easily spend all day with you at a farm and walk you through places, and then send you on your way to the next farm too. So the advice is really about just reaching out to farmers and listening, and seeing where it goes from there.